A human-driven truck costs about $2.26 a mile to operate. An autonomous truck today costs about $8.60. That's nearly 4 times more expensive, and fleets are still lining up to buy them. One carrier just committed to 500 autonomous trucks. If your first instinct is that those buyers are being sold a story, stay with me, because the number that matters isn't the one on the left. It's the slope between them. This is a buyer's guide, not a hype video, where the technology actually is right now with real mileage figures. What the regulation says in August of 2026, which changed more in the last 6 months than in the previous 6 years. The 2 business models you'd actually be choosing between and what each one costs. The limits nobody puts in a press release. And the liability question that is genuinely unresolved. At the end, 5 questions to ask a vendor before you sign anything. Let's start with where this actually is, because the gap between the headlines and the operations is wide. Aurora launched commercial driverless freight with Class 8 trucks in 2025. By the end of June 2026, its system had completed nearly 440,000 driverless miles. Not supervised miles, driverless. It runs 10 autonomous freight routes across the U.S. Sunbelt, and it recently began deploying second-generation trucks with hardware designed to last 1 million miles. Kodiak reported 10 driverless trucks in operation, over 5,200 hours of paid driverless service, and more than 3 million autonomous miles. It's working toward long-haul driverless service in the second half of this year. So here's the honest summary. This is real freight on real highways being paid for by real shippers. It is also small. 440,000 driverless miles sounds like a lot until you remember that a single busy long-haul truck covers over 100,000 miles in a year. The entire driverless fleet in this country is, in mileage terms, roughly equivalent to 4 hardworking trucks. That's not a criticism. It's a scale check, and it tells you exactly what stage you'd be buying into. Now, the part that changed fastest, and the reason this conversation is happening in 2026 instead of 2030. 3 things moved. First, the FMCSA is updating its rules to exempt driverless trucks from human-specific requirements. Hours of service is the obvious one. You cannot enforce a 14-hour driving window on a system that doesn't get tired. This codifies an interpretation the agency first floated back in 2018, that a driver, in the regulatory sense, does not have to be human. Second, and this is the big one, a rule designated RIN 2126-AEC17 was projected for August of 2026. If it lands as written, it becomes the first comprehensive federal operating framework for driverless commercial trucks in the United States. Not an exemption, a framework. Third, there's a bipartisan bill in Congress, the 2026 Self-Drive Act. If it passes, it will be the first federal law explicitly authorizing driverless commercial trucks on U.S. highways. And critically, it would preempt the state-level restrictions that currently block multi-state deployment. That preemption clause is the whole ballgame. Right now, more than half of U.S. states have autonomous truck rules, and at least 24 explicitly permit them. Texas, Arizona, and Florida among them. But a patchwork of 24 permissive states and 26 ambiguous ones is not a national freight network. It's a set of islands. Federal preemption is what turns islands into a map. One more signal worth noticing. On July 10th of this year, the FMCSA activated a waiver letting Aurora satisfy the standard warning device requirement by alternative means. Think about what that regulation assumes. That a human being can get out of the cab, walk back down the shoulder, and place triangles behind a stopped truck. There's nobody in the cab. Every rule written around the existence of a person now has to be re-examined, one at a time. That waiver is the regulatory system doing exactly that in public. If you're evaluating this for a fleet, you're not really choosing a truck. You're choosing a business model, and there are 2. The first is transport as a service. The technology provider holds the operating authority, controls the truck, carries the insurance, and bills you a full service rate. Aurora's published figure for this is above $2 per mile. In this model, you're buying freight movement. You own nothing and you carry very little risk. The second is driver as a service. You acquire, manage, and maintain the trucks yourself, and you subscribe to the autonomous driving system and its related services. Aurora's published figure here is above 85 cents per mile. Look at those two numbers together because the gap between them is the actual decision. Roughly $2 versus roughly 85 cents. That difference is what you're paying someone else to absorb. The asset, the maintenance, the operating authority, and the insurance. If you already run a fleet, you have depots, mechanics, and a maintenance program. Driver as a service lets you put your existing infrastructure to work and keep the savings. If you don't have that, the 85-cent number is a mirage because everything it excludes is a cost you'd have to build from zero. Now the economics, honestly. Today, about $2.26 a mile for a human-driven truck. Around $8.60 for an autonomous one. The autonomous truck loses badly right now. But the trend line is what buyers are actually purchasing. Goldman Sachs research expects autonomous trucks to become cheaper per mile than human-driven trucks in 2028. Their cost curve runs from $6.15 per mile in 2025 down to $1.89 by 2030. Volvo's own modeling puts a mature autonomous truck in the $1.15 to $1.35 range, which works out to roughly 7 cents per ton-mile against about 14 cents for a diesel tractor. Where does the saving come from? Mostly one line item. Driver wages and benefits account for close to $1 of that $2.26. About 44% of the total cost of moving a truck is the person driving it. That's the entire thesis in one sentence. And it's also why you should be skeptical of any projection you're shown. Every one of them assumes the technology reaches a scale it has not reached yet. The 440,000-mile figure from earlier is the reality check on a 2030 number. Here's what doesn't make it into the sales deck. Every autonomous system operates inside what engineers call an operational design domain. It's the envelope of conditions the system is certified to handle. Outside that envelope, the correct behavior is to stop or hand off, not to try harder. Weather is the sharpest edge of that envelope. You're combining an 80,000-pound vehicle with reduced visibility and uncertain traction. Without reliable information about actual road conditions, the only safe choice is to stop, which means the operational envelope narrows exactly when the freight is most time-sensitive and the value of the truck is highest. And the hard technical problems remaining are not the ones you'd guess. Staying in a lane is solved. The long tail is not. Complex construction zones, degraded lane markings, unusual merges, and sensor contamination, which is a polite way of saying mud, salt spray, and ice on the very cameras and LiDAR the truck depends on to see. No training dataset can contain every real-world configuration. That's not a temporary gap waiting on the next software release. It's a structural property of how these systems learn. And now the question that is genuinely unsettled, which is the one I'd want answered before I signed anything. When an autonomous truck causes a crash, who pays? There's no driver to assign fault to. So liability could land on the truck manufacturer, the software developer, the fleet operating the vehicle, or their insurers. Determining which one means establishing whether the cause was a product defect, a sensor failure, a software error, or a cyber attack. That is a forensic investigation, not a police report. Insurers are building new products for exactly this. Technology errors and omissions coverage, cybersecurity policies, product recall insurance. The existence of those new products tells you the old ones don't fit. You'll see projections of lower premiums for autonomous fleets. Read them carefully. Every one of them assumes that somebody, somewhere, is clearly accountable when the technology fails. That accountability has not been settled by legislation or by a body of case law. It will be settled by the first serious multi-fatality case that goes to trial and nobody knows yet which way that goes. One more thing on safety data, because you'll see a number thrown around. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reported that autonomous vehicle crashes rose 200% between 2020 and 2022. That sounds damning. It is also nearly meaningless without context, because the number of autonomous vehicles on the road grew enormously over the same period. A raw crash count with no denominator tells you about deployment, not about safety. Be equally skeptical of the people quoting it against the technology and the people ignoring it. So if you're actually evaluating this for a fleet, here are the 5 questions I'd put to a vendor. Write these down. 1. What is the exact operational design domain? Not the marketing version. Which specific routes, in which weather conditions, at which times of day? Get it in writing. 2. Under this contract, who holds the operating authority and who carries the insurance? The answer determines whether you're buying a service or absorbing a risk. 3. What happens when the system disengages mid-route? Who recovers the truck? How fast? And at whose cost? This is the operational question that decides whether the economics survive contact with reality. 4. What is the indemnification structure if the system causes a crash? If the vendor won't put clear language in the contract that tells you what they think of their own liability exposure. 5. What is the maintenance requirement on the sensor stack, and who is certified to do it? A LiDAR array is not a taillight. Your existing shop probably cannot service it, and that's a recurring cost nobody quotes up front. If a vendor gives you clean answers to all 5, you're talking to a serious operation. If 3 of them get deflected into a future roadmap, you have your answer. I'll put those 5 questions in the description so you can take them into a meeting. If there's a specific vendor or contract structure you want me to break down in more detail, say so in the comments. That's how I pick what to cover next. Here's where I land, and I'll be direct about it. If you run a small fleet, this is not a 2026 purchase. The cost per mile is 4 times a human driver. The operational envelope is narrow, and the liability framework is unwritten. Buying now means paying a premium to be someone's proving ground. If you run a large fleet on dense, repetitive Sun Belt lanes, the calculation is genuinely different. That's precisely where the technology works today. The federal framework is arriving this month, and the carriers committing to hundreds of trucks are not doing it out of optimism. They're doing it to be positioned when the crossover arrives in 2028. But here's the part I'd actually plan around, whichever category you're in. The regulation is moving faster than the technology. A federal operating framework this month, and a preemption bill in committee. The constraint on this industry is shifting from what the trucks can do to what the contracts say, which means the people who do well out of this shift won't be the ones who bought the earliest. They'll be the ones who read the terms most carefully.